The 22nd of September, 1939. In the morning we are led away again. I must say that many Polish officers with whom we are in contact behave most correctly. It is promised that not a hair of our heads shall be harmed, and if anyone mistreats us, we should protest to a Polish officer. Many of them are actually human beings. We get a little something to eat now. The trouble is, no one knows what to do with us. We wander from south to north, from east to west. On the roads we are continually harassed by Polish troops. But no matter whom we speak to, they all hope the war will end soon. Nothing more to eat in the evening. Today I'm still alive, and so are you and Laura. All of us. The 23rd of September, 1939. We have to go on without food, supposedly 6 kilometers. We march towards the north, have to turn back, then eastwards, then westwards. We have more and more the feeling that the Poles don't know what to do with us. The Poles' behaviour is good now and then. What do you think is the explanation? We get nothing to eat all day long. Towards evening we arrive at a large farmhouse where there are Polish troops as well. A captain receives us. He is exceedingly friendly. But food? Well, they haven't got any themselves. No flour, no salt, no bread, no fat. They've nothing. For some time they've been cut off from the others. He has a soup cooked up for us, made of corn and potatoes. It tastes ghastly, but it's warm. Then he clears out a room for us 22 prisoners. I forgot to tell you that some days ago we were increased by 7 more. We go and get straw for the room. At last, a roof over our heads. In the evening, this Polish captain comes and sits with us. He speaks openly. A Polish officer with 22 captured German soldiers. He tells us his life history. He was born in Graz, has a wife and child. In the World War, he fought for Austria and was wounded. He now lives in Lemberg, and his name is Alfred Teuer. Conversation turns to the present war, which is lost for Poland, as he says. He speaks of an army which ran away, of a force ruined and divided, of England's guilt, of fleeing officers. He knows the situation exactly. He's aware of everything. He says that though the war is as good as finished for Poland, for Germany it will go on. And he's right. The war will continue until England's supremacy is crushed. He then promises to send us back to our front with an escort. He even wanted to let us go free this evening, but we thanked him and refused, thinking it might be dangerous. But he could not give us a statement that we asked for, saying that we were free and could return to our troops. We believed him, though, because a major had already said the same thing. We are already delighted at the prospect of being with our own people again. Today I'm still alive, and so are you and Laura. All of us. The 24th of September, 1939. When we woke up in the morning, we found ourselves alone. The captain and his men have gone, so it's no back to the front march for us. Other Polish troops soon arrive, however. All those we speak to, and whose outlook is not too limited, know that the war is lost for them. Despite the rumours, which are the same everywhere, only the method is different. All of them are sick and tired of fighting, and all wait only for the end of Poland. The Germans, too. We are told that 3 Polish divisions were crushed today. Civilians come to us. We buy bread, order a potato soup to be made, and buy a goose which will be cooked for us. After all, today is Sunday. Oh yes, I forgot to relate how one of our non-coms, when he was taken prisoner, was relieved of 180 zloty. Captain Teuer gave them back to him yesterday, out of his own pocket, I'm sure. We were astounded. For the last day we've not had anything to smoke. We buy tobacco leaves and cut them up. A Polish soldier saw 6 German tanks on a rise. If only our people would come. Our front is 7 kilometers from here. We talk with the Polish soldiers. Many of them can speak German, mostly Jews. In the evening, the Polish lieutenant lets us know that we shall have to accompany his troops. At 5:30 a.m. we line up, and at 7 a.m. we leave. After 100 meters we halt to stay there for an hour and a half. Despite the wintry cold, then we are sent back to our room. But we have hardly lit a fire when we have to leave again. This time it's a false alarm too. We come back, then actually leave for good half an hour later. I ask the lieutenant what he intends to do with us. He explains to me sarcastically that we'll arrive in good time at the proper place, and that the schedule will be adhered to precisely. Just what does that mean? I advise everyone to be alert. To be a prisoner, a real prisoner, really is very hard, especially under such circumstances. They ought to send us to a general collecting point. After all, we can't be the only German prisoners. And we haven't had anything decent to eat for God knows how long. And of course there's no hope of cigarettes. Today I'm still alive, and so are you and Law. All three of us. The 25th of September, 1939. Today is another day full of nerve-wracking events, if I count the night as well. One is much like the other. We had to march with the Poles the whole night, despite pouring rain. Wherever we look, German beacons, searchlights, Germans. We march and march. There's practically no way out for the Poles. I have already decided that if the Polish lieutenant doesn't let us free tomorrow, I shall demand my rights of war. We must be brought to a camp behind the lines. If there isn't any more behind the lines, then we must have a guarantee for our personal safety, which is a right we have as prisoners, and which we then won't have any more. We must be protected from the revenge of Polish soldiers. As light comes, we see that the Poles have been able to break through the circle, for otherwise we would have already run into the Germans. I hope our tanks will arrive, but it seems too late for that. We turn into a forest, and there we'll probably remain till evening, with no food. The 140 Poles haven't any either. It's still raining. I crawl behind a tree while the Poles bring their horses and wagons and guns into the woods. Then I notice that a civilian with his arms raised comes out of the woods. Now another Pole, then another. I don't know how many. Why, all of them. We 22 prisoners make a break for it. It's our only hope. Are the Germans coming, or Ukrainians? It's a foreign command anyhow. As I get out of the woods, I recognize them. They are our Russian allies. I can't describe this moment. The emotions inside me can't be described. I felt no joy. I didn't laugh, or cry, or weep. I wasn't touched at all. Only someone who rises from the dead can know this feeling. It was 3 Russians who took the Poles prisoners, 1 officer and 2 non-coms. They saw the Poles coming, hid in the bush, and when the Poles were in the woods, the Russians began to shoot. No one had thought of opposition. Whereupon the Polish officers took to their heels, and the men, one and all, came out of the woods. The Russian captain at once gave us arms. We're full-value soldiers again. The numerous wagons are emptied and the contents sorted. This keeps us busy till 2 p.m. Then we help the captain cart the things off. We're off for Tomaszów, a town already in our hands. In the evening we get an excellent soup, with lots of game and poultry in it. After the meal we push on. I haven't slept at all since yesterday morning, but perhaps I shall today. The 26th of September, 1939. We drove right through the night. When the Russians take a breather, they do it differently from our way. They go up on a rise, where they can get a view of the whole surrounding country. We are always in a village or in a wood, to be out of sight of the plains. Or, when the Russians go through a village or a forest, they first shoot off a few MG shots, as a precaution against being killed by single pot shots. But we don't do that. We've had to drive the Polish wagons. You can imagine what it's like to drive horses, when you've, as I haven't, no idea at all how to. To feed the horses, get them harnessed and unharnessed, it was awful. The way the Russians treat us is not quite the way we would like, but the main point is, we're saved. The food is excellent, but unusual for us. They're simply altogether different people from ourselves, and very frugal. We're supposed to go on this evening, and we actually do. It began to rain in the morning, and it's still raining. The 27th of September, 1939. In pouring rain, we travelled through the whole night. This morning we're supposed to reach Zamość. There the Russian captain will pick up new orders. What we'd like best is if they would leave us in some town or other, and then send us back home. But not what is going on now. It's still raining. We are driving towards Lublin. Later we turn off and stop in a village. There the captain delivers us to staff. Up to now he's led us round any way he wanted to, and when we asked a question, he always found a new way of fobbing us off. The new captain, his name is Kawalenko, is quite different. He explains that we aren't prisoners, but guests of the Russian army, and that we'll go with the Russians until they meet up with German troops. The truth at last. It can't last more than 2 or 3 days, or a week. He's very friendly. They brought us food right away, and he gave us his own tobacco. Later, they brought us dinner. We stay in the village. At long last, a good night's sleep. We're simply exhausted. The 28th of September, 1939. At 6:30 a.m. we get up. The rain, thank God, has stopped. In the morning we each receive a package of tobacco. It's a horrible weed, but it's something to smoke. Our clothes and underclothes, insofar as we have such things still, are completely soaked through. If I can only avoid falling ill. Not that. The Russians push on again. The Germans are leaving this area. I just don't understand that. What was the Battle of Tomaszów for? It cost us numberless casualties, and now it's to be Russian territory. I'm curious to see the Russian-German lines. Yesterday we were told that the war was actually finished. Both armies are only cleaning up. We see this on the roads. Thousands of Polish soldiers, their weapons surrendered, are going home. That's typical of this war. People who are actually prisoners wander around free as birds. Do they just take their weapons away and send them back home? Or is it just the Russians who do that? Actually, I think it doesn't matter much to the Polish people whom they belong to. It was crazy of the government to start the war. Now Poland has ceased to exist. Its beaten army moves in rows of thousands and thousands along the road. All those I spoke to complained that the Polish officers ran away at the decisive moment. That's why they lost the war before they started. With a mentality like that. During the night, a guard was posted in front of our house, but they explained to us at once that it wasn't to guard us, but as an honorary measure to protect us from the civilian population. Quite something. The Russian weapons are, in quantity, quite terrific. But do they measure up to the most modern technical standards? For the most part, they are motorized. In general, I think I can say, certainly no comparison with us. The best and most modern, the most disciplined and best-trained army is that of Greater Germany, Großdeutschland. I'm only afraid of one thing, my darling Henny. When our regiment returns to Vienna and I'm not with it, you'll be afraid I've been killed. I'm sorry about that. Your griefs, your worries, I don't even want to think of it. I hope the Russians will let you know through the German authorities. Otherwise, we'll be considered missing till we get back home. The Russians are very charming hosts. They wait on us hand and foot. The 29th of September, 1939. The food is gargantuan. In the morning, some kind of soup and tea. At noon, soup with meat and something to go with it. Evenings, meat soup and tea. The food is far superior to ours. The soup all by itself is quite as good and as nourishing as a whole meal of ours. But we couldn't take it over a longer period. It's the same too, every day. We get the sugar for our tea separately. The Russians put the sugar in their mouths and drink their tea that way. The only hardship is the cigarettes. We each got a packet of tobacco, that's true. But there's no cigarette paper. We roll our cigarettes in a newspaper. The tobacco is so bad, though, that I don't smoke more than 2 or 3 cigarettes a day. Yesterday we marched 26 kilometers and my legs ache all over. Today, towards noon, we marched off again and have to do another 26 kilometers. The 30th of September, 1939. This morning, I was terribly ill. I think that I'm no longer used to the filling and punctual meals. We're supposed to have only 20 kilometers march to the Weichsel River. There we are to meet up with German soldiers, and we will be with our unit today or tomorrow. Ribbentrop is supposed to be with Stalin. They are reported to have signed some kind of arms agreement between the Soviet Union and Germany. I think that the Russians are keeping us back as a propaganda move, so that we'll say how well the Russians treated us. The troops in front of us are supposed to have already made contact with our army and told them about us. Today we heard the latest news on the wireless. France is reported to have attacked German towns again, and French troops to have touched German soil. The troops, 1,000 strong, were driven off. Otherwise, all quiet. Russia is supposed to be working hand in glove with us now, and to have declared to France and England that if they attack Germany, they will find Russia on our side. The agreement is supposed to be binding for Germany too, and so I think that the gentlemen in France and England will have to think things over carefully before they act so stupidly. Moreover, Papen is supposed to be in Paris. He will certainly produce some results. The 1st of October, 1939, Śmigły-Rydz declared that the Polish army is now defeated. He could have made this silly observation on the 1st of September, for it was a joke to fight against us with horse-drawn wagons. I've seen only very few trucks or tanks in the Polish army, and aeroplanes only at the beginning, and with their weapons they can't compare with us at all. If their hand grenades were distributed to their whole army, it would mean 2 hand grenades for 35 men. Or take the company which took us prisoner. They had 1 MG. It was ridiculous. They were terrified of our flyers. How right they were. When necessary, they pulverized the Poles. When we were prisoners, we were often reproached for the fact that our flyers bombed the civilian population in towns and refugees. That may have been true, but the reason is this. A reconnaissance plane takes photographs of the towns in which there are military objectives, railway yards and sea. The bombers then fly according to these photographs, and at the designated point the bombs are unloaded, without the pilots having, in this case, to find out what's going on down below. If civilians happen to be underneath, it's not his fault. When the Poles saw our flyers, even at a great distance, they rushed off in all directions without paying any attention to us prisoners. But we 22 men didn't even think of escaping, for where could we go? Yesterday I spoke to a Russian soldier who knew German, about conditions in Russia. Even if the picture we made, or rather which was made for us, was not correct, I nevertheless think that communism for Russia was at that time her salvation. For the rest of Europe, and Germany in particular, it would be unthinkable. As time goes on, communism will also forget its international ideas and become nationally conscious. Even now one speaks of our blood brothers in the Ukraine. Perhaps a Russian fascism will come to pass one day. 12 p.m. German officers came to the Russians for a staff conference. They are from the 27th Division. The Russians provide us with a truck, and our officers take us along with them. Our own division is said to have withdrawn a considerable distance. We're taken to Krasnik. But here we learn to our regret that no one knows where our division is, and we shall therefore be attached to the 63rd Infantry Regiment. We eat a good meal again, and in the evening we sit for hours with our Kameraden of the 63rd in front of an open fire and talk about our experiences. The 2nd of October, 1939. Today we shall be posted. I'm curious to know where they'll put us and whether we shall all stay together. At noon there was, at long last, a real German meal again. Beef soup, potato goulash and black coffee. How good it tasted! After lunch we have to prepare ourselves and are posted to the different units. We look for new quarters and find them too. Rooms in a stone house, each one with a stove. There are even beds. In the evening we talk in bed for hours and describe our past lives. Again we come nearer to each other. I have to say it once again, there is something wonderful in this sense of comradeship within a group. We hold and will hold together, come what may. We go to sleep late, each of us wishing to be with our dear ones again soon. The 3rd of October, 1939. We put our modest dwelling in order, heat the stoves and then go to wash. When the Poles were taken prisoner by the Russians, I organized pyjama trousers and a shirt, so that at least I have a change of clothes. Then I go into town and have my hair cut. Now I look like a human being again. Some decent clothes, and I can go on for a while. Yesterday the soldiers of the light infantry got their mail. Almost every one of them got a pile of letters and parcels. Can you imagine, Henny, how heavy my heart was? It's not easy, something like that. I couldn't help it. I had to go away. But I am happy that at least I could send a message to you, for who knows whether you weren't told that I was missing. I would like to write to you several times each day, but there's not a piece of writing paper to be had, far less an envelope. The only shop that's open is the barber's. There's nothing to be bought, no fruit, no chocolate, no cigarettes, no clothes, nothing. The 4th of October, 1939. We are now supposed not to be going to march because the 1st Battalion is coming here. Then it's to go to Lublin. The division remains as an occupation force in Poland. That would be terrible for us. In the afternoon they bring us to the 1st Battalion. We go to the commander and ask to be allowed to return to our troop, but we don't have any equipment and no proper clothes. I have silk pyjama trousers and a charmeuse shirt. No socks, dilapidated shoes instead of boots, no cap, no field canteen, no mess equipment, and see. It's the same for each of us. The commander promises to transfer us as soon as they reach Lublin. It's a Bavarian regiment, and of course we understand each other very well. I've got a first-class cold and hope it's not flu. That's all I need. At 9 a.m. I go to the chief of the company we're attached to. He explains that we're only here as guests, that we won't really go on duty at all, and ought to be with our own people in a few days. Let's hope so. The 5th of October, 1939. We are supposed to be ready to march at 9 a.m. From the company we go to the battalion, are loaded in lorries and leave for Lublin. There we spend the night, 40 of us in a room in a factory. Tomorrow we're to be put on the train and will probably go to Vienna. That would be something, at least for a day. My God, a bath again, a white bed, and you. The 6th of October, 1939. At 6 a.m. we leave for Radom. There we heard the Führer's speech. The end was really great. The people of Europe, especially France and England, should come to their senses at last. Otherwise it could happen that, after all, Poland was once a state too. The 8th of October, 1939. At 6 a.m. we crossed the former German border. In Opeln we changed trains for Breslau. Red Cross nurses treated us royally with coffee and bread and butter sandwiches. When the people on the station platforms found out that we had been prisoners, they handed us apples, chocolate and cakes through the window. In Breslau, we again got a real reception from the Red Cross nurses. We were given good soup and coffee and bread and butter. How much less fortunate our fathers were in 1918. At 13.30, the D-Zug takes us towards our beloved Vienna, to wife and child, to parents. In all the towns of the Reich, the flags of our nation adorn the windows, the visible sign that the war with Poland has been brought to a victorious end. It is a victory of indescribable importance. It is a victory of heroism, a victory of right. It is a victory of sacred belief in our eternal Germany, a victory of National Socialism, and thus a personal victory of Hitler. For it was Adolf Hitler who cancelled the shameful debt of Versailles for all of us, cancelled it in a way which at the beginning no one believed possible. He put the German people, in this war against Poland, to the strongest test they have undergone since the World War. And now 82 million Germans have fallen in to report to the Führer. Adolf Hitler, thy German people have withstood this test. My dearly beloved Henny, this diary was conceived while thinking of you. It was intended to show you the way, the difficulties, in fact everything that happened to me in the war. These pages were to be sent to you, were I no longer there. I am sure that these daily, nay hourly thoughts of you together with your talisman protected me from death. I don't know. I always persuaded myself that I was immune against the enemy's fire. The hours in which I saw you in my mind's eye, distorted with pain, these were difficult hours. Now that's finished. We must remain happy. God wanted it to be so. Let us thank him. Note: there were, of course, many things that I couldn't really write about the way I wanted to, particularly during the period of my captivity. I had to be prepared to be searched once more by the Poles, or when I was with the Russians, to be taken prisoner once more. And then, there are many things which don't belong in these notes, which are intended only for you. The 8th of October, 1939. On the trip between Breslau and Vienna. The 6th of November, 1939. 24 beautiful, wonderful days of leave are now at an end. What have they brought to both of us? For you, some evenings when you were alone, that's the bad side of it. And some wonderful, I think very wonderful hours. For me, the same. We heard a lot of news in this time. Actually, only bad news of the great number of my Kameraden who fell. It's awful. Just to think that Wallner, Kolchak, Hofer, Mohor, and Lord knows how many others are no more. Kameraden, who shared their all with each of us, who threw their lives into the breach to save another. Well, such is fate. The man who knew how to worm out of everything, who escaped every kind of responsibility, he's generally in safety somewhere. The other gave for the nation the utmost that a person can give, his life. How awful it was when Hofer's parents were here at our place. And when I bought 1/4 kilo of apples from Kolchak's parents and looked at his mother's eyes without letting her know who I was. Yes, such is war. What more can be in store for us? We don't know. As I was reading in bed at 10:40 p.m., I heard the wireless going in the next room. The announcer was so excited that I thought there must be a special news broadcast. In my shirt and pants, I rushed into the next room and heard the report given by the commander of our fighter aircraft. It's a wonderful show of arms. German energy paired with all the other virtues of our people have been responsible for this proud victory, and that's the way the final victory will be too. For this reason, the others are fighting for a wrong cause, fighting to prevent us from living, fighting to keep us from enjoying the bounties of the world. We're fighting for our rights, for our lives, and it is always those who are in the right who win. And today we're a different Germany from what we were, a National Socialist Germany, and we know how to fight for our rights and lives. The gentlemen in London and in Paris too ought to put that in their pipes and smoke it. The 9th of April 1940. In the afternoon, the rumours of the occupation were confirmed. It is the turning point of the war. Our boys are really delighted. Dear God in heaven, we thank thee that we are Germans, and still more that we are allowed to live in this gigantic epoch. On the one hand, I am not too happy at having to leave my Kameraden, whom I've been together with for 1.5 years. It's specially hard to have to leave our revered Herr Hauptmann, captain. But on the other hand, there are possibilities in the regiment which beckon to me, the kind of thing I always needed in my life. So I seized the opportunity. Thursday, the 16th of May, 1940. As far as I am informed about conditions in Holland, in Belgium it's much worse, I'm told, not to speak of France and England. It's quite clear to me that the Western powers are afraid of us. Perhaps not because of our National Socialist regime, and not only because we're Germans. No, they are afraid of our national orderliness. They are afraid of our sense of justice, of our proper economic efficiency, of our holidays, such as the 1st of May, which they don't know about here. They are afraid of our German gift for organization, afraid of our German propaganda, afraid that their people will wake up by themselves and drive their rulers from the country with sticks or drown them like dogs. That's what the gentlemen in London, Paris, Brussels, etc. are afraid of. But don't worry, gentlemen. Your hour is rapidly approaching, and any minute now you'll be in touching distance of us. Germany's coming all right. Her Wehrmacht, at the head of which will be our dearly beloved Adolf Hitler. We'll find you, sure enough. Saturday, the 18th of May, 1942, 30 p.m. A huge column of soldiers is approaching us from the opposite direction. Belgians and French, about 500 of them, on the road to Berlin. Oh yes, Herr Daladier and Company, will present our little bill yet. The Ostmarker, Austrians, whom you were so sorry for. Perhaps you can convey your sympathies personally. My Kameraden and I would be just delighted to receive them. Or perhaps you're in London for good. Well, if you just wait a bit, we'll be there soon too. I simply can't explain how it's possible for two peoples only a few miles distant from each other to reveal such differences in culture, education, organization, and so on. In Holland, all things considered, a very pleasant surprise. In Belgium, it's simply Polish. Sunday, the 19th of May, 1940. In the most splendid spring sun, and in the thunder of battle in the west, you, dearest Henny, celebrate your first anniversary of motherhood. Surely on this day you will go to our little one's bed and look upon your own flesh and blood with transfigured eyes, and the child will beam at you happily, its mother. Today without understanding, but later in the realization that it is a part of you, that it has grown up with the knowledge that it can turn to you with all its problems. It's that way with everyone. Even when a man is old and grey, he is always lovingly attached to his mother. How many Kameraden who gave up their lives in this gigantic, decisive battle died with the word Mutter on their lips? Know, too, that you mothers have a national responsibility in war. Be unswerving in the holy belief in this our rightful cause. Be never wavering in your confidence in our dearly beloved Führer. Be proud that your sons may take part in this, the greatest war in history. Be overjoyed if you may be permitted to sacrifice them for Volk, Reich und Führer. Be honest, true German mothers. Tuesday, the 28th of May, 1940, 11:30 p.m. On our wireless, we hear the news that the Belgian army has surrendered unconditionally. My eyes are wet for joy and pride in the Wehrmacht's accomplishments, for respect and thankfulness at those who fell. Now comes the turn of those who are most to blame, French and English. We'll get you. Monday, the 10th of June, 1940. On the road we found a vehicle on its side one from our artillery units. One soldier lay beside it, dead, with a knife in his chest. Another was badly wounded, but still alive. He told us they were attacked by mutinous black prisoners and knifed. As a reprisal, we rounded up 20 and shot them on the spot. In the evening, we learned that Italy has declared war on France and England. Monday, the 17th of June, 1940. In Street Solge, a woman addressed us in very good German, probably a Jewess, and complimented us on our performance during the last 3 weeks. It really is incredible. We can scarcely believe it ourselves. On Saturday, the 18th of May, I wrote some friendly advice for you, Herr Daladier, which can also serve for your successor, Reynaud. I didn't know then that in scarcely 5 weeks Paris would be in our hands and your armies in complete disintegration. But one thing I did know, that the moment your armies gave in, you would run off, far away. That I did know. Herr Reynaud, you have the dubious distinction of having been at the head of your people in this its most historic moment. You have the dubious distinction of having plunged 2 peoples into utter chaos. You have the dubious distinction of having shamefully betrayed your people and then fleeing. You cannot turn back the wheel of history, Herr Reynaud, but the time will come when history will pass judgment on you in the way you deserve. While we are marching, a special announcement from the Führer's headquarters reaches us. Marshal Pétain is considering an armistice. He asks the Führer for our terms. My God, we can't believe it. I am so utterly happy. Monday, the 24th of June, 1940. At 11:50 p.m. I hear a special announcement on the wireless that at 1:35 a.m. on 25th June, all arms are to be laid down. The war in the West is ended. One of the most glorious victories in German history has been won. We've done it. Tuesday, the 25th of June, 1940. The first day of peace in the West. We don't expect any further advance today. Vehicles, weapons, machines are to be put in order. I've still only one wish, to get to England. From the 6th Comper parcel for Corporal Vraz, who fell, was returned to me. It's firmly packed and tied up with several bits of string, quite heavy. I gaze at the parcel for a long time before I write on it in red pencil, Gefallen für Großdeutschland. Then I send it back to his wife. What can be inside? Perhaps a cake with lots of raisins. He used to like that. Perhaps some apples, some pictures from his beautiful Styria. Perhaps some good cigarettes. Vraz smoked only on Sundays. Perhaps a letter in which she tells him she's pregnant. Vraz has been married only a short while. Poor Vraz. Poor Vraz? No, brother. You are rich, immensely rich. You have given the best, the finest, the noblest for your fatherland. You have fallen for Greater Germany. There follows an account of the trip back home, through Luxembourg and the Mosel Valley, to Stuttgart, Munich, Braunau, Amstetten in Lower Austria, where they arrived on 6th July. Friday, the 19th of July, 1949 p.m. The ringing Heil still in my ears, I leave the commanding officer's room, in which I just heard the Führer's speech. In my mind's eye, I see before me the field-grey uniforms of the Reichstag delegates. I see the thousands and thousands in the crowd waiting in front of the Kroll Opera House, Berlin, to give to the Führer and his men proof of the burning love of the people. Even now I hear the words which aroused everyone, and I sit down at my table with my own thoughts. It excited me just as much as the whole German nation. When you consider the progress of the last 10 war months, the destruction of Poland, the heroic Battle of Narvik, the capitulation of Holland and Belgium, the smashing of France, it is quite unbelievable. Here brilliant military strategy has been wedded to statesmanship of exceptional power. Our marvellous Wehrmacht, so integrated, was forcefully supported by home production. But above everything else, how obvious it is that the Almighty has blessed us in this struggle. We are aware of our strength. We know that at the conclusion of this struggle will be the most glorious victory of history. We fear nothing, no one. For after all, the Führer has said how incomparably we are armed for this last phase of the struggle. How immense are our arms and munition, our supplies, petrol and fuel, our inexhaustible fund of raw materials. But despite all this, once more the Führer has appealed to reason. As a soldier, as a human being, as victor. Once more he has given England and the world the possibility of ending this senseless battle. What a man! I know, though, what will happen. You, Mr. Churchill, will once again describe this as the Reich's weakness. You will ignore this last appeal or gloss it over with an idiotic gesture. Probably you won't even feel the effects of this last struggle. In the final analysis, only the English nation will feel it, just as it's always the people and not the criminal leaders who feel the effect. We soldiers, we burn, just as our Führer said to fight against England, our arch-enemy. This is quite clear from everything I've written up to now. We want to avenge all the insults which she, England, has heaped upon the German people, and especially our soldiers. We want revenge for the ridicule she has heaped on our Führer, to avenge the murder of our women and children, and finally we want to force from her our right to live. Give us this right to live of your own free will, Mr. Churchill, and you save the lives of millions of people. You will spare the English nation useless mountains of corpses. You will save the land from a devastation far worse than in France. Herr Churchill, here is the hand of freedom, offered by the Führer in his deep sense of responsibility, and with it freedom and work and reconstruction, or destruction and misery and need and an empire destroyed. In both cases, however, now and for all time, an established Greater German Reich. Choose, Mr. Churchill. Saturday, the 1st of February 1941. Tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. we shall leave Vienna from the Bahnhof Stadlau. For the fourth time since my army life began, I must take leave of you, without knowing when and if I shall return. This time it's different, because you're expecting our second child, Heinz Peter, born the 30th of April 1941. My God, how proud of you I am. How happy to know that I call one of the best, bravest and dearest of woman my own, and how happy and pleased I am with our little one, our sunshine. I leave you and Lawley and everything I hold dear, but it is not difficult to go. My duty calls me, my Führer. I am happy and pleased, I cannot repeat this enough, to be able to be where the German man can best show his true colours. And I know that in this period our fate for the next centuries is being decided. I commend you to God. 8th of February 1941. The Hungarian population very friendly. In Temesvar I could have bought salami, 8 mark the kilo. When we arrived in Romania, one could see the difference in the people right away. Thoroughly dirty, smeary characters. Sunday, the 9th of February 1941. It is strictly forbidden to buy goods and so on, and we're watched carefully. It's no particular disadvantage, because only food is really cheap, everything else very expensive. A Wiener Schnitzel costs 32 lei, a scrambled egg with ham 28 lei, a pair of Würstel with mustard 24 lei, a bottle of wine 50 lei, and so on. A suit 6 to 8,000 lei. We've got a fabulous rate of exchange, 1 mark to 80 lei, normal rate only 50 lei. Wednesday, the 12th of February 1941. When you see Romanian soldiers, you are at once reminded of the way Polish, Belgian and French soldiers look. Very, very pathetic. The Romanian soldier gets 60 lei a month. Monday, the 24th of February 1941. On Saturday last I made a surprise trip to Bucharest. We left with the motorcycle at 2 p.m. and were there at 5 p.m. It got dark soon. Bucharest is completely blacked out, but I could see one thing. The immediate contrast between poor and rich. Wonderful skyscrapers next to old historic buildings. Noise and traffic such as I've never seen elsewhere. Undisciplined pedestrians who pay no attention at all to the numerous policemen, all blowing their whistles madly, or to the red lights. In the evening I ate in an excellent restaurant. I paid 70 lei for a pork chop with potatoes. Tuesday, the 26th of February, 1941. We are to move to Bulgaria in march formation. Sunday, the 2nd of March, 1941. At 12, we crossed the military bridge over the Danube between Giurgiu and Ruse. In Ruse itself, which lies right on the Danube and is our first Bulgarian town, we were heartily welcomed. Bulgarian soldiers salute very smartly. You notice right away a considerable difference between the Romanian and Bulgarian troops. Flowers and cigarettes are thrown to us, and the people continually cried, Heil Hitler, Auf Wiedersehen, Gute Reise, and so forth. German and Bulgarian flags decorate the houses. Again, we soldiers find ourselves proud and happy to be Germans. It's a wonderful feeling to be a German soldier and be cheered like that. May each one of us realize that we can rightly be proud of ourselves, proud that the whole world looks at us in admiration. Kameraden, that's something to live up to. Monday, the 3rd of March, 1941, 10 a.m. We just drove through Gabrovo. No one thought the population here would be as charming as it is. Cigarettes, books, fruit, friendly greetings of Sieg Heil, Gut Reise and See in abundance. Beyond Gabrovo, there's a factory built entirely according to our principles of beauty in work. Bright, high windows, living quarters for the workers, a fine park. Our influence is unmistakable. Up to now, I can only say that Romania can't be compared in any way to Bulgaria. The 13th of March, 1941. There are some, though not many, soldiers here who have contracted venereal disease. That's of course disgusting, not only for the married men, but also for the single. How can one, as a German soldier, get involved with any old piece of tail in skirts whom one comes across? It's quite clear that the women involved are hardly decent. Obvious that those who contracted the disease don't realize they're Germans, and don't think what consequence such a thing can have for our people, and of course for themselves. Revolting. The 15th of March, 1941. We've the offensive before us now. We're to go to Greece. Tuesday, the 1st of April, 1941. The condition of the Volksdeutsche in Yugoslavia is becoming impossible to bear. Today, 2 special trains with German refugees are supposed to have arrived in Graz. Reports of people being dragged away as in Poland and so on. But a couple of days' patience, my dear Serbs, and we'll be coming. The 4th of April, 1941. This afternoon, we received orders to attack Yugoslavia. We shall not lay down our arms until the Yugoslav government in its present state is crushed, until that destructive herd, who set off the greatest bloodbath of all times, the First World War, is taken care of. Easter Sunday, the 13th of April, 1941. We just learned that Belgrade has fallen. That's the end of the Yugoslav government. Monday, the 14th of April, 1941. At 3 a.m. we crossed the Yugoslav-Grecian border. To my astonishment, I don't see the Greek soldiers surrendering, wandering round in our occupied zone without their guns, as we did in Poland, Holland, Belgium, France and Yugoslavia. Are they perhaps better soldiers than all the others? The 18th of April, 1941. We found several severely wounded men. They had lain 4 days in the rain. The English didn't bandage a single one of them. On the contrary, they put them in the path of our artillery fire. The dying Kameraden were given water mixed with petrol. This scandalous act of the English at Stena Portus will never be forgotten. The 8th of May, 1941. At 3 a.m. we recross the Grecian-Yugoslav border. I take my leave of a country which made absolutely no impression on me whatever. I was very disappointed. We could see nothing of Europe's old Kulturland. Greasy people and poor, impossible clay huts and houses. We weren't in the real Greece, the historical part, but that won't be much better. As far as I can judge, this nation is at least 2,000 years behind, and lives only from its age-old, if epoch-making, cultural tradition. Again, another country has fallen because of you, Herr Churchill, a country which you selected as a springboard against the unconquerable Reich, and as with the others, you shamefully betrayed it. We are only happy that the Greeks didn't have to make such a bloody sacrifice as did the French. But even these few were driven to death by you, Herr Churchill. When one day the history of the world's greatest war criminals will be written, you shall certainly have the questionable honour of first place among them. Friedland, Upper Silesia. The 21st of June, 1941. Tonight we're off, despite the fact that we haven't all our vehicles. We got a batch of new ones, and the ones that are still missing are supposed to be delivered today. I wonder. But it will work out, it always does. I'm not sure yet what's happening. But we are to go to the east, and quite certainly to Russia later on. But as what? I cannot believe that the Führer would sign a non-aggression pact, only to break it 2 years later. On the other hand, though, we are supposed to prepare for air attacks, and they keep talking of troop concentrations. And if Molotov really gets pushed out and Stalin makes a deal with England, then of course it's clear that we've got to crack down. Personally, what I think will happen is that they'll let us march through voluntarily. Anyway, we shall know in the next day or two. I rang you up tonight, but you weren't in.